Hello everyone, Jimmy is with you as always, and today we have another selection of stories. Do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate your support. Well, let's get started. First story today from user ThrowRainDecisiveHus. Let's listen. Background. We've been together for 2 years, married for 1. We're both in our early 20s. The night of the dump, we'd had an argument about the distribution of chores that I think triggered it. I thought it wasn't fair that I was doing the majority of the housework, on top of being a full-time student at university and having a job. He seemed to think the chore distribution was fair and that I was overreacting. We came to a solution after all the dump I'm about to tell you about occurred, but essentially, I was feeling overwhelmed and unheard, and he was feeling stressed and confused as to why I thought this was a problem. Later that night, we're discussing the situation again, and I express how it feels like he's not listening to me and how distant he's been lately. Then he says there's a reason for the distance, and I ask him to tell me why. He says that he thinks we moved too fast, he doesn't know who he is, and he wants a divorce. He says he cares about me, but doesn't love me, and that he's been feeling this way for a while. Now, I've promised myself since years ago that I would never try to make someone stay with me if they don't want to. So, as much as this hurt, I said, okay. I cried. He cried. I did ask if he wanted to try couples therapy before divorcing, but he said no. We decided to sort out details in the morning. I grabbed some blankets to sleep on the couch, and he went upstairs to bed. In the midst of my sitting on the couch, crying and looking up apartments, what felt like hours later, I hear him get up and come to the living room. He sits down next to me and just says, "I up so bad." I freeze when I hear this because I've barely processed the reality of what just happened, and I can already see where he's going next. I ask him to elaborate, and he says he doesn't want a divorce, that he doesn't know why he said that, and he's feeling the most regret he's ever experienced in his life. He says that he realizes he up, and I don't have to take him back. At this point, I've experienced so much emotional whiplash that I've completely numbed out. I'd already cried all the tears I could. Now was just sitting there next to my sobbing husband and saying I'd take him back, even though I'd barely processed the fact that he'd wanted to divorce me. I told him I wanted couples counseling and for him to get individual therapy, and he agreed. I've asked him about individual therapy in the past, but he never wanted to until now. It's days later now. I've gone through all the stages of being mad at him, depressed that my marriage almost ended, insecure about myself, accepting the reality, feeling love for him, feeling numb, cycling through all these emotions over and over again at random. We're searching for a couples counselor, but a lot of them have waitlist right now. So in the meantime, I just want to know if anyone has been in a similar situation. Does it get better? Does the trust ever come back? I feel like I can't trust him at all now. When he touches me, I freak out sometimes because that's not the comforting feeling I'm used to when he touches me. It's the feeling like he's suffocating me. I want to be here for him and help him through whatever mental dump he's going through. But this has been affecting my work and my school. I left my dream school for him. I can't just keep prioritizing him above everything else when he clearly doesn't do the same for me. And yet until now, he was doing the same for me. He's always been so sweet, buying me flowers, making dinner, going out of his way to make time for us. And before you scream abuse, please know I've been in abusive relationships before, and they felt nothing like this. He's not like those guys. This is the first time he's ever done something like this. I just don't know how we can recover. Any advice about how to get through this would be appreciated. Author update this story. 1 year ago, I, 24 female, made this post asking for advice on how to continue with my relationship after my now ex-husband, 26 male, betrayed my trust by telling me he wanted a divorce out of the blue and then changing his mind just a couple hours later. As stated above, he is now my ex. Those of you who said that he would repeat the same behavior again, you were right. On New Year's Day 2024, he said he wanted a divorce, packed a bag and left to a motel, then came back hours later. I'll admit, I was a wreck that day. I asked him if this was just going to be like last time, and he said no. I asked him if he felt mentally okay, and he said he felt fine. I got on my knees and begged this man to stay, not my proudest moment, and he looked at me with empty, vacant eyes and just left. I was in tears for a couple hours, but then I opened this app to try to distract myself and saw he had made a, now deleted, please don't go looking for his account, post on the divorce subreddit about how he left me and felt bad but didn't regret it. Then I went from depressed to furious. I called my landlord and told him that I was getting a divorce and needed his help in changing the locks. My landlord was very understanding and helped me do so. A few hours later, I heard a knock on the door, and when I opened it, my ex-husband was standing there. I didn't even get a chance to tell him to leave because he immediately collapsed into my arms, sobbing. The first coherent words to come out of his mouth were, "You're not gonna take me back, are you?" Reddit, I would love to say that I rejected him right then, but I didn't. Even after all of this, I was still hooked into his web of manipulation. So instead, I sat down with him and had a long discussion about how much he hurt me, how in the middle of working to rebuild the trust that had been broken between us, he completely destroyed any progress that had been made and found a way to make that distrust even worse. I don't remember the details of what he said, but he always knew what to say to get me to feel sorry for him. The night ended with me saying I would take him back. He was smiling, saying he'd never felt so hopeful. He wrote me a love poem that night for the first time in years. Meanwhile, I had never felt so broken, and I told him that after he said he felt so hopeful, he shrugged it off and said I'd feel better in the morning. I did not, in fact, feel better in the morning. During the next few days, while I was trying to pick myself back up, study for finals, and continue going to work as if nothing was wrong, he went back and forth every day on whether or not he loved me, whether or not he wanted to be married to me. He said he thought he loved the idea of being a husband more than he loved me. My last straw was when I reached out to one of his childhood friends, who I had interacted with a few times and though I could trust to be honest with me, and asked him if he had ever noticed any red flags in my ex-husband's behavior in his past relationships or behavior towards women in general. This friend assured me that he had never noticed anything of the sort. I thanked him and asked if he could please not tell ex-husband. I asked that since I was afraid of what he might do. When my ex-husband came home from work that day, I could immediately tell he knew. He opened the front door so forcefully. He sat down on the couch next to me, told me he knew, and said in a low and almost growling tone of voice, "But I know you didn't mean any harm by it." I was frozen in fear and couldn't say anything. But then he grabbed my face and turned my head to look at him, and his eyes looked so cold, and he said again, "You didn't mean any harm by it, right?" I nodded and forced myself to answer, "Right." And I knew in that moment this man would kill me if I didn't find a way out of this relationship, if I didn't kill myself first with how bad my mental health was getting. After dealing with him insulting and belittling me day after day, I was genuinely starting to spiral into a dark place I hadn't been to in years. The next day, while he was at work, I packed a bag, wrote a note telling him I'm leaving, and that I want his stuff out of the house when I get back, left the note on the counter with my ring, and spent the night at my mom's. It is an uncontested divorce, filing by mail, and should be finalized in April. I started the paperwork at my mom's house that first night of separation. Since ending my relationship, I have gone to therapy and realized just how abusive and manipulative my ex-husband was. I also understand how broken he is. But being mentally unwell is not an excuse for abusive behavior. What he did to me was abuse, and I'm not afraid to say that anymore. I have reconnected with old friends and made new ones. I have started doing things that I love again, things he never wanted me to do, like wearing red lipstick or eating mint-flavored things, and going to concerts. I've realized I never want to be married again. I've discovered my polyamorous identity and have begun to explore this side of myself. I have plans to move out of my hated hometown that he had dragged me back to. I feel so much more joy, freedom, and self-love than I ever did when I was in a relationship with my ex-husband. I won't be using this account anymore after this, as I have no need to. But I want to thank this community and the other Reddit subs that I've participated in. If I had never made my original post, I don't think I would have realized just how awfully my ex-husband treated me. Thanks to the support of hundreds of voices telling me I deserved better, I realized how true that statement was. I deserve better, and now I have better. I also want this update to be a beacon of hope to anyone who has found themselves in a similarly emotionally or verbally abusive situation. Life is so much better when you leave. There is hope. There is light on the other side of the pain. Thank you again, Reddit. I am finally free. What I think about this story, there's part of me that is betting when he asked for the divorce the first time it was to stop the conversation about the fair distribution of chores, and it worked for a while because she was too scared he might up and leave again. I also noticed they got married, so he could get a visa. I wonder if he was determined to stay married, so he didn't get deported. I also notice she was always the one who had to keep giving things up for him. She should never have let him back in after she had the locks changed. He was so toxic that she knew it, and was telling us all how toxic he was from the very first post, but she couldn't acknowledge it. Let's check the user's comments and author answers. I'm glad you got out, but I'm sort of curious as to why he didn't want you to eat mint-flavored things. He didn't like the taste of mint and wouldn't kiss me after. Same reasoning for not wanting me to wear red or bold lipstick, or any lipstick really. He wouldn't kiss me if I wore it because he didn't want to get lipstick on him. Even the lipsticks that were transfer-proof, and I showed him how they were transfer-proof, he wouldn't kiss me afterwards. I feel so confident when wearing red lipstick, and I love the taste of mint. And I honestly wonder now whether he really was that afraid of getting lipstick on him, or whether he just didn't like how happy I was wearing it. I have worn red lipstick nearly every day recently. The second story from the user, Gingerbread Construct, let's listen. This has been going on for several years. I live in a small rural neighborhood with an HOA where the houses are spread apart, but neighbors are expected to keep their houses and yards nice. As with most HOAs, some members can get a little carried away with the seriousness of it all. There will be passive-aggressive emails about escaped dogs, shirtless runners, unsightly fencing. It really annoys my husband. I just laugh at it. Well, a few years ago, the neighbors got together and made a community garden in the center lot. There were a lot of emails sent about this, a lot of drama. I don't remember all of it, but people would get upset if someone took up too much space with their plants, planted something unsightly. So then we start getting emails complaining that someone was picking all the shallots or onions out of the garden. Some people thought it could be deer eating them. There were several theories. The next year, the same thing happened, and then people were also complaining that the onions or shallots were going missing from their personal gardens. This year, it started happening again, and people flipped out. All caps emails, demands to interrogate teenage residents, requests to put security cameras in the communal garden. 2 houses were hit, and then people started staking out in their gardens and putting up game cameras. It started out being funny, because I'm not involved with gardening, so it was just amusing to read all the emails. But this year, people are getting really upset and wanting to get law enforcement involved. So anyway, you already know what happens. I walk down to the bottom of our property that I don't visit often, and I find a lot of smashed onions and shallots. Like absolutely smashed to bits. It clearly took a lot of work. I went inside and told my husband jokingly, "I think we're being framed for the onion heist." He got this really weird look on his face, and I had the realization and asked him if he didn't have anything to do with this. He confessed to me that he did, and had been stealing the onions and shallots to spite the neighbors. He was sneaking out at night to do this. I asked him why, and he said he just hates them so much. I don't even know. This makes me really uncomfortable. The man is 31 and sneaking out at night to steal onions, and I didn't even notice? Why wouldn't he just tell me? Like, this has been going on for 3 years. It's not like he just did it once as a prank. I don't know what to do. Can anyone help me think this through? Maybe I'm overreacting, but I'm pretty upset. What I think about this story, so many people seems to think this is funny, but I'm actually a little disturbed by it. So I'm glad that someone is giving serious advice. It's just difficult for me to relate to someone feeling hate towards people for being annoying. To put so much thought and effort into messing with other people. and to get enjoyment out of others' anger. It seems like a lot of unhealthy attitudes and behavior I'd prefer that my partner work on addressing. If it was I would also be upset by how reckless my partner was being with my relationship with the neighbors. If he is caught, then OP will face the consequences too, at least socially. If it gets real bad, then they might need to move away. It seems irresponsible that for years he has been steadily pissing of the neighborhood more and more. And all the while, OP is unaware of the potential angry fallout she might have to face. Thanks to everyone who was on the first part today. I'm waiting for you on the second. I love everyone. Bye-bye.